In episode 171 of the Guitar Music Theory podcast, I answer listener questions about playing in front of an audience, Joe Bonamassa's rhythm guitar playing, the song Take On Me, and more. Greetings, guitar engineers. Welcome to the Guitar Music Theory podcast. If you're captivated by the magic of guitar music and eager to unravel the mysteries of music theory, you're in the right place. I'm Desi Cerna, your host, fellow guitar enthusiast, and author of Fretboard Theory, Guitar Theory for Dummies, Guitar Picking Mechanics, and more. In each episode of this podcast, I delve into the fascinating world of guitar and music theory, demystifying complex concepts and providing practical insights to help you become a more informed and skilled guitarist. Together, we'll explore chord progressions, scales, improvisation techniques, and more, unlocking the secrets that make guitar music an irresistible art. Today, in episode 171, I answer listener questions about playing in front of an audience, Joe Bonamassa's rhythm guitar playing, when to renumber a modal chord progression, the key of Take On Me by Aha, when you might want to use a different fingering for the G chord, and the best guitar practice amp. It's going to be a great discussion, but before we get started, what should you specifically be working on right now in order to become a better guitarist? Go to my website, guitarmusictheory.com. Answer the question I ask you about your playing, and I'll send you free custom video instruction that's calibrated to your current level. Whether you're a beginner still needing to learn the basics, or you need help with bar chords, finger picking, guitar soloing, or understanding music theory, I have a free course for you. I can provide you with a plan to put you on track to fill gaps in your playing so you can move forward and reach your music goals. Enroll in your free video course now at guitarmusictheory.com. You can click on the link in the podcast show notes. All right, so we are ready to dive in. Hey, the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that I have been podcasting kind of infrequently. The last podcast that I posted was just over a month ago. And so many of you have emailed me kindly and told me how much you love the podcast and have asked me if I will have new episodes out soon. So yeah, I plan to continue podcasting. Hopefully I can do it with a little bit more regularity, but I have been very busy with other things. Mainly, I do a lot of Zoom lessons and Zoom classes, which have been going really well. So if you were not aware that I did that, I'll just tell you a little bit about it. I've got some Zoom classes on people who are working on their core skills, where I'm helping people put together a set list of music that they can perform for themselves or for others. I have a class on improv where we're working on the very basics of improvising over tracks and knowing which scales to pick and how to play appropriately over different styles of music. I have a class going now where we're analyzing like famous guitar solos and looking at some of their specific licks and techniques. And then I do some private stuff as well. And if you were not aware that I was doing this or you didn't get any notifications about enrollment being open for these classes, it's because you're not on my email list, or you are on my email list, but you're not receiving my emails or you're not opening them. So just head to my website, guitarmusictheory.com, and you can join my email list by either just enrolling in any one of the free courses I offer. Once you're enrolled, you're on the email list, and I'll keep you posted on my Zoom classes. Or you can just hit the subscribe link in the website navigation, and you'll be on the email list as well. That's the primary way that I communicate to my students and followers and fans. And when I do plan these classes and these special topics and stuff that I teach in these group sessions, it's always through email that I make that announcement. So it's been going really well, and it keeps me busy, and people really like it, and we get to interact kind of somewhat personally and live together and it's a lot of fun. So that's kind of been my priority, and it's taken up a good chunk of my time. And so podcasting, unfortunately, has just kind of been on the back burner. In addition to that, I've also been working really hard on redecorating my home office / studio. So I plan to start releasing more YouTube videos or video content, and I'm going to make it look better. It's been redecorated. We got album artwork on the walls. We got some new lighting. We got some new furniture in here, new paint on the walls, and that's something that I'm working toward. I got a new camera. Haven't even opened that new camera yet. We're going to get around to that. So I'm going to try to up my game here and get back to making some more YouTube content, and we're going to make it better this time. And so anyway, it's been very time consuming. Being a content creator, it's a funny thing. People look at me and say, yeah, Desi Cerna, he's a guitar player. It's like that's kind of the last thing on the list that I am, because when you're making content, you're a recording engineer, you're a videographer, you're a video editor, you're a producer, you are a copywriter, you are a marketer. Like, you have to think about all the things that are necessary in order to create content and then make it available and make it visible. Anytime you watch someone on Instagram or YouTube and that you think of as being a musician or a guitar player or a music teacher, you got to realize that because you are watching them on video on those platforms, it means first and foremost, they are a videographer and a video editor. And that stuff is very time consuming. And I've actually been putting in some time to learn how to improve in that area, because I want to connect with you and more often and connect with more people. And I have lots of great content I know I can make. So that's what I've been doing. There's a little update. Been busy. Okay, let's actually get into the first Q&A of today's podcast episode. It says, Mr. Cerna, my long-term goal is to perform in front of an audience, whether that be friends and family or at an open mic night. While my primary focus is on learning the blues, I remain open to exploring rock and country styles as well. I began playing guitar on October 11th, 2024, and have been consistently practicing for the past 5 months. Like many guitarists at this stage, I'm working on smooth and timely chord transitions while maintaining a continuous strumming pattern to play complete songs fluidly. I am committed to daily practice, dedicating at least an hour per day without missing a session since I started. While some days have been limited to 10 to 15 minutes, I ensure that I engage with the instrument every day. In terms of learning resources, I have watched Absolutely Understand Guitar. While I may not yet grasp all of the advanced concepts, having been exposed to them allows me to recognize key ideas as I progress. Currently, my technical focus includes developing alternate picking with the goal of incorporating hybrid picking, practicing finger independence through 1, 2, 3, 4 exercises and variations, mastering the A minor pentatonic scale, playing it fluently in both ascending and descending directions, playing Ode to Joy, single note version on the high E and B strings, strengthening bar chord transitions and overall proficiency, developing power chord techniques for rock and blues applications. And he says, I would love to incorporate any ideas you might have that could help me reach my goal of performing in front of an audience. I remain dedicated to structured, disciplined practice and look forward to continued growth as a guitarist. Thank you, James. Well, thank you, James, for sending such a great email. And you sound like a very diligent learner, so that will definitely pay off for you. So lots of good things going on there. A couple of things I might comment on. You mentioned Absolutely Understand Guitar. I'm not familiar with that. So I Googled it, and it says Absolutely Understand Guitar, the ultimate home study program featuring Scotty West. I'm not familiar with this program or Scotty, so I can't necessarily endorse it, but I'll give him a shout out. Nonetheless, it sounds like it's been informative to you. I'm just kind of scrolling through the site here. It looks like he's got a lot of guitar theory information. And the website copyright says 1995 to 2021, which means this website's been active since 1995. That's impressive. He predates me. I think my first website I had up, I did have a website in the 90s for a band, but my first official website where I was starting to sell my books and, for me, I think was 2001. And I've changed domains since then, but I've actually been online since 2001 with an active guitar instruction website. How about that? Anyway, some other things that I might comment on. Well, first of all, here's what I would recommend. So you want to play in front of an audience. So it's super important that you work on putting a repertoire of songs together. And it sounds like you're already doing that. You mentioned that you're working on strumming along with complete songs. So that's the first thing I would recommend. You can take a look. This is kind of an answer for James specifically, but then for all my listeners out there who might be in the same position, take a look at some of the free videos I have on my website about helping you get started with playing some simple songs. And then I have courses like my Essential Skills pack where I go through like things that are core skills that every guitar player ought to know in terms of being a solid rhythm guitar player and using open chords, power chords, and bar chords and all the techniques that are involved with, strumming along with complete songs. So you definitely want to complete something like that first. That's going to lay the foundation for everything else that you want to do. And if your main goal is blues, I have a blues course too. But I would really recommend that you lay the foundation of just learning how to play in the style of just common kind of pop rock songs first. Then when you jump into the blues, you just have that foundation and you're ready to kind of get into more of some style-specific learning. So I would definitely recommend that. And just work on songs. If you want to play in front of an audience, think about the types of songs that you're likely going to have an opportunity to play in front of an audience, and then work on playing in that style. Start with the simplest of parts, just strumming along with songs using cowboy chords, and then moving around the fretboard with power chords and bar chords. Work on your rhythm guitar skills first, then work on any necessary kind of melodies or hooks or riffs or something like that. And you could kind of save the guitar soloing for last because you don't really need to play guitar solos in order to perform. The most important thing is rhythm guitar skills. And which reminds me of something I recently saw. Oh, we should play that video, shouldn't we? We'll get to that next, if I remember. Work on your rhythm guitar skills. That's how you support vocals. That's how you play in an ensemble. So that's the foundation that you need. You mentioned that you practice finger independence exercises. If you enjoy those and you have time for them, then I don't want to spoil your fun. But I'll tell you that I don't like to practice those because while it seems like having finger independence would make you a better guitar player, what actually makes you a better guitar player is when your fingers get used to playing the specific things that you do while you're performing music. And sometimes some of those independence exercises are not the same types of movements that you would use when you're actually performing music. So if someone has limited time, I would say strum along with songs. That's going to be far more valuable than some of those exercises. Not that those exercises couldn't have their place or that you couldn't enjoy them and also incorporate them, but prioritize things. Make sure you're playing along with songs first. You mentioned that you're playing Ode to Joy, single note version on the high E and B strings. I'm guessing this is because you're going through like a note reading method, like Mel Bay's modern guitar method or something like that, Hal Leonard method. And learning how to read music like that can actually be very beneficial. I typically don't teach it just because guitar players typically don't like to learn that. They want to jump into playing songs. And honestly, it's more useful to learn how to play songs. If you can get up on stage with a band and strum along and hold down the rhythm guitar solidly, whether or not you can read standard musical notation or play something like Ode to Joy is kind of irrelevant. That said, if you're a very ambitious guitar player and it certainly would not hurt you to learn the basics of reading music. So I'm glad that you're doing that, but don't let some of those things sidetrack you from your ultimate goal, which is you want to perform in front of people. So sometimes we need less time focusing on standard notation or independence exercises or theory for that matter. We just need to get our general playing skills in order and learn how to play play along with a lot of songs. Okay, that said, let me share something with you that I recently saw. This is from a video that was posted by Tyler Larson on his Music Is Win channel, where he did an interview with Joe Bonamassa. And Joe Bonamassa is a phenomenal lead guitar player and just and a phenomenal performer. And in the middle of the interview, he said this. Let's listen.
So when you're playing, you can pick up an instrument and accompany yourself. So if we're demonstrating like this, or you're sitting at home, or you're in a theater with thousands of people, you can pick up the instrument and be solo. Can you explain what you're thinking when it just comes to like being musical with your instrument instead of picking up, be like, all right, I got to practice my scales right away?
Well,
Do you think about it like that?
Well, that comes from playing rhythm guitar most of my life.
Right.
I have the most self-indulgent guitar gig in the world. Okay, literally, I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like a solo artist who plays really long guitar solos. Self-indulgent. Even with that, I sing more and I play rhythm guitar more than I solo.
Yeah.
So being able to comp chords, playing in time and in tune, that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. It's a real big deal. It's not just about 1 minute clips on Instagram.
Sure.
Because a lot of times it's the total. Can you play with an ensemble?
Yeah.
Bingo. So Joe knows here. We've got to understand that as guitarists, we play rhythm guitar most of the time. That's where we develop our fundamental skills and our musical senses and our ability to accompany a singer, accompany other instrumentalists, play with an ensemble. And it's on top of that skill foundation that you then work on other things that you might be more passionate about, like lead guitar playing, or maybe even specializing in a particular skill or something, or specific style or something, blues or something like that. So that was taken from a video posted to YouTube by Tyler Larson on his Music Is Win channel, and it's titled "Joe Bonamassa Handed Me the Keys to His Insane Guitar Rig." They mostly just talk about his guitar rig and how insane it is and how amazing it sounds. Something else I might comment while I brought this up is that I often recommend that guitar players get themselves one of these so-called, guitar practice amps or lunchbox amps. They look like a little oversized lunchbox, and they have tiny little built-in speakers and some amp modeling and built-in effects, and some, you can connect headphones or connect by Bluetooth. Now, these are not typically the amps that our guitar heroes used. They usually would play through a Marshall stack, or, through a Fender Deluxe Reverb amp or a Vox AC30 or something like that. And those amps are responsible for recording many of the classic tones that we know and love on famous records, but they are loud, and you have to turn them up very loudly in order to get that tone out of them. And that's really impractical when you're practicing at home, because it's just completely just overbearing. And so these little practice amps will model some of those sounds at a much lower and more comfortable volume in a much smaller package. And it's just a better practice tool so you can play along with songs, and so you can easily dial up a variety of tones and some common effects. Now, when you watch that video of Joe Bonamassa, though, he's on stage and he's got an array of amplifiers, hundreds of watts behind him. It's very loud. He even at one point talks about how, beware of standing in this area. He calls it the kill zone, the circle of death, because it's so loud. So I very much envy that Joe Bonamassa has an opportunity to use those types of amps that way, turn them up loudly, and you can hear his tone just does sound wonderful, and good for him. And I'm glad that we have opportunities to hear other players do that, and maybe you have an opportunity to do that on occasion yourself. But we have to just keep in mind that sort of thing is only appropriate or only possible in certain situations. And if you are mainly practicing at home, then you will probably get better use out of your equipment, and you'll have much more enjoyable and effective practice time if you get something that is more suitable for that environment. So you can go to any online retailer, or go to your local retailer like Guitar Center and just look at what's available in terms of like guitar practice amps. You can look at the Positive Grid Spark is liked a lot by its users and has a lot of very useful features, or something like the Boss Katana or the Yamaha THR. Fender has some smaller, low-powered amplifiers that are very versatile and can work really well. So just go try some things out, plug in, see what you like. But keep in mind that the purpose is this ideal for sitting on my desk or my end table at home and making the best of my practice time at home? It's not an amp that you're going to take out to a gig. You would need something different for that. All right, moving on to the next question. Hi, Desi. I hope you're doing well these days. I am now retired. I am playing a lot of guitar, mostly on the church worship team. Now I have to figure out what the last phase of my life looks like. I can't play guitar and watch YouTube videos all the time. Hey, why not? Today I logged into your Fretboard Theory course, Volume 2, Chapter 2, and watched you describe how chords get relabeled and reorganized when playing in modes. For example, the A in A Dorian mode becomes the 1 chord rather than the 2 chord of G major, and so on. It seems to me that the Nashville number system makes so much more sense and is so much easier than relabeling the chords as you describe in your video. If I want to play an A Dorian chord progression, then why not simply say, let's do a song in the key of G and start in the 2 chord? Why complicate things by saying the A chord becomes the 1 chord? I am amazed at how many songs you know. You give example after example of songs in your various modes. You could easily play in a cover band and do a great job. You really are impressive. All the best, Mike in Morrison, Colorado. Well, first of all, congratulations on retirement, Mike. Good for you. And I'm so glad that you have opportunities to play at church. That's wonderful. So let's talk about modes. Let's get this guitar out here. So you mentioned A Dorian mode. That's the second mode of the G major scale. So think about the G major scale, people. And you can go through the scale and you can harmonize it, and you get chords for each scale degree. And the modes come about when you use something other than the first degree as your tonic pitch and your tonic chord. So if I'm playing the notes of G major over music that uses G as the root, then your ear is always hearing G as the root and G as the beginning of the scale. We call that Ionian mode, but most people don't use that term. They just say major scale. Well, if I go to the second degree A, and it's chord A minor or A minor 7, if I'm playing A to A, well, now the structure of the scale is completely changed. I now have a minor chord as my tonic pitch. I've got a minor third in my scale there. And so that creates a different sound. this is called Dorian mode. That's its name. And it happens in a lot of familiar songs. So in the first volume of Fretboard Theory, when I introduce modes, I talk about how it's just simply the notes and chords of a major scale, but if you are composing music in a manner where your ear is hearing something other than the first degree as your tonic pitch, then the structure changes, you know. When you hear the notes of G from G to G, you're hearing a major second, a major third, a fourth, a fifth, a major sixth, a major seventh. But if you take the same notes, if you are playing A to A, well, now if your ear hears A as the root, now you're hearing a second, minor third, fourth, fifth, major sixth, minor seventh, and a minor chord. So it sounds different. It has a different mood to it. You can think modes are like moods. So I teach this concept in Fretboard Theory Volume 1. It's also in my book, Guitar Theory for Dummies. It's also in my music theory video courses as well. And I reference a lot of familiar songs, like, for example, the solo section of Light My Fire by The Doors, which I was just playing there a little bit ago, uses A Dorian mode. So Mike is saying, okay, that's great. I get that. We understand that the A minor chord is the 2 chord. But later in Volume 2 of Fretboard Theory, I say, okay, now that you understand the basic concept of modes, you need to understand that usually when we're in a musical key, whatever our tonic pitch is, we call that one, and then we renumber and restructure from there. And he's saying, well, why do that? That seems confusing. Why take A Dorian mode when we know that A minor is the 2 chord in the key of G? So let's say I'm doing a progression. I'm doing something like A minor to D major, like very typical Dorian mode progression. A minor to D major, or I'm playing A minor 7. So you can clearly see that A minor is the 2 chord in the key of G and D is the 5 chord in the key of G. Why can't we just say it's 2-5 in the key of G? Well, you can, and that's technically correct. However, it's more correct in music to say this is a 1-4 progression. And the reason why is because our ear, A minor and D are only chords 2 and 5 if G is our point of resolution. But in A Dorian mode, A is where we resolve. Which means you're hearing a tonic pitch, and then you're hearing that pitch go up a 4th interval and go back down. So your ear is actually, when you go from A to D, that's not 2 to 5, you're actually hearing 1 to 4. So that's why it's important to kind of understand this concept. Yes, the parent scale is G. We came out of the G scale where those notes are 2 and 5 in the G scale, but we're not really in the G scale. We're in A Dorian mode. A is our tonic pitch. So we hear this as a minor 1 chord and a major 4 chord. And then as music gets more complex and complicated, it's more critical that you understand what is our tonic pitch, and you label that as 1 because you need to understand the movement of the music from the tonic pitch. So if I did something like... sounding almost like Santana's Evil Ways now. I used A minor 7 to D major, then I went to an E7. Well, what is the E7? Well, in the G scale, it's the 6th chord, but it's usually minor. And so are we playing a secondary dominant in the G scale? No. The E7 is a dominant 5 chord to A. We need to understand that's what we're hearing. That's what we're producing. We're producing a tonic pitch with a dominant 5 chord that's going back to our tonic pitch. And our tonic pitch is A. Our dominant 5 chord is E7. What's the relationship between A and going up to an E? That's a 5th. That's what we're hearing there. We're not hearing 2 to 6 like That's not what we're hearing. We're hearing 1 to 5. So it's important to understand that. The reason why I don't teach that initially is because it's confusing and it's overwhelming, and a lot of people will completely miss the modal concept. I believe that you should understand how modes stem from the major scale, learn how the major scale is numbered, and then learn that you can, it's like a little wheel, and you can, shift it to different positions. Is G your tonic? Is A your tonic? Is B your tonic? And you can get the different modes, and you just want to see that it uses the same notes and chords. A minor Dorian mode uses the same notes and chords as the G scale. B minor Phrygian mode uses the same notes and chords as the G scale, and so on. You go through all the modes. But so we keep it simple, and you can. It really helps people understand the fundamental concept that way. But then later I say, okay, let's get into reasons why we would look at this from a different angle and number it differently. And as progressions get more complicated, it's more essential that our tonic pitch is labeled as 1. So what if I'm doing something like... Oh, I just threw something out in there. So I went from A minor to D, and then I went F, G, A minor. Well, where do F and G come from? I'm using a technique now called modal mixture. This is where you have a tonic pitch and you draw chords from different parallel scales. That would be different scales that also start on that tonic pitch, but they're actually different scales. So in this case, I mixed some A Dorian mode with A Aeolian mode, which is the natural minor. And sometimes that happens in music. Well, how am I going to number this progression then? If I'm just going to think parent scale, I have 2 parent major scales. A Dorian is out of the G scale, but the natural minor chord changes there would come out of the C scale. Well, I can't use numbers for the G scale and numbers for the C scale, because then if I did, I would say this is 2, 5, 4, 5. Well, now I got 2 5 chords, because D is the 5 chord out of the G scale, but the G major chord I used in this progression is the 5 chord out of the C scale. So we have a problem here, right? So instead what we do is we think about what is the relationship between A and whatever other chord we're using. Well, A to D, that's a 4th. A to E was a 5th, right? We talked about that earlier. Well, what's A to F? Or that's a flat 6th. What's A to G? Or that's a flat 7. So if I was using the chords A minor, D, E7, oops, sorry, my display was going to sleep. I hit the space bar to wake it up, and I stopped the recording. I'm back. If I'm using the chords A minor, D major, E7, F major, G major, I would think about everything in relationship to the A. This is 1. This is 4, this is 5, back to 1, flat 6, flat 7, 1. So sometimes it's necessary to do that. We need to think about the tonic pitch, and we need to think about the relationship between that tonic pitch and the other chord changes, because that's what our ear is actually hearing. When I do something like this, you're hearing flat 6, flat 7 to 1. That's the interval structure you're hearing, because this is our home base here, right? Now, technically, these chords come out of the C major scale where they're 4, 5, and 6, but that's not what we're hearing. We're not hearing a 4th and a 5th and a 6th. We're hearing a flat 6, flat 7, 1. Okay. Some of you found that answer fascinating, and you said, oh, that makes perfect sense, Desi. You're right. The rest of you are very confused, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what he's talking about. I'm still trying to get through bar chord songs. Hey, that's okay. This theory stuff actually is important, and it's very useful. It does help you understand music composition, helps you understand the music you play better and remember what's happening and understanding what you're hearing, and helps you compose. And it's also just interesting and fun to learn. However, make sure you learn things in the right order. So if you're still just working on your fundamental skills, then you're kind of getting a little ahead of yourself with this theory. Don't worry about it. Keep practicing the other stuff, and start with one of my books and start at the beginning and learn some of the more fundamental stuff first. And then you eventually get into this concept of renumbering, restructuring modes, and using modal interchange or modal mixture, where you can actually have a tonic pitch and you can play, progressions that are actually drawing from different scales, parallel scales. It's an interesting concept. But anyway, I think I've said enough about this. Good question, though, Mike. And once again, congratulations on your retirement. Hope to see you in a Zoom class sometime. Coming up next, I'm going to talk about this song, Take On Me. It starts on B minor, but is that really the key? We'll find out. All right, we're ready to answer our next question. And it says, this is from Joel, and he says, the set list for the band I'm playing with next week. Joel connected with me because he had a gig coming up, very excited, and he wanted to get some help prepare for that because that was new to him. He hadn't done much of that. And one of the songs we worked on was Take On Me by Real Big Fish. But I'm just going to kind of talk about that version, but the original version in general. But he says, so the set list for the band I'm playing with next week has Take On Me by Real Big Fish listed as in the key of A. Ultimate Guitar has it listed as in the key of B minor. Looking at the chord progression of the chorus, it looks like 1, 5, 6, 4, and A major, but much of the song centers around B minor, which is probably why B minor was listed as the key in the Ultimate Guitar tab. Do you think this is in B minor Dorian mode? Asking a question like this is way above my skill level, but I did not want to arrive at the studio having to transpose on the fly because I had been practicing in the wrong key. Let's take a look. So I pulled it up on ultimateguitar.com, and that's what I was playing, a little bit of the backing track there. It's got the interactive tab. I have the paid version of Ultimate Guitar, which if you're learning a lot of songs and you want a great way to practice, I highly recommend the paid version. You get access to the actual professionally transcribed tabs, which are far more accurate than all the user-generated stuff. You get this really cool interactive tab player where you can slow things down and loop things and isolate tracks and all that good stuff. It's a fantastic learning tool. I probably should set up an affiliate account and tell you to, go to my affiliate link since I recommend it so much, but I don't care. It's a great tool and it's super inexpensive. So, try it out. Anyway, so yeah, we're looking at the chords here. Now, this particular version I'm looking at, it says the key of A, but I could see how you might find other versions that say B minor because it does start initially on B minor. And when you get into that theme, it's like... It starts on B minor during that, before the theme kind of comes in, it's just on B minor. So here's the deal. When you say, what key is it in? Well, that can mean a couple different things to different musicians. For some people, the key is whatever is first. So because the first chord is in B minor, when people say, hey, well, what are we playing this in? They'd say B minor. I just dropped my pick. I dropped my pick and I actually saw where it landed. Isn't that funny? Sometimes you drop your pick and it's like it makes a run for it and is trying to escape. And you're like, where the heck did it go? Not this time though. I found it. So some people, when they refer to the key, they're talking about whatever chord is first. Now, oftentimes the first chord in a song is your key. But in this case, it's not. If we follow these changes, B minor, E, A, D, A/C sharp, and then it repeats B minor. Now, I immediately recognize that this is actually in the key of A. So that's our key. That's our parent scale. And this progression is 2, 5, 1. There's our tonic pitch. And then it goes to the 4 chord. Then from the 4 chord, it goes down a half step. There's the 3rd, but it's not actually the 3 chord. It's an inversion of the 1 chord A. It's A/C sharp. So it's, and then it repeats the cycle. 2, 5, 1, 4, 1 over 3. That's what we'd call that. And how did I immediately recognize this? Because I've played so many songs and so many keys, and I immediately recognize what's the only major scale in the world that has an A major, a D major, and an E major. That is the A major scale. What's the only scale that has those chords together, right? Different keys will have A or D or E, but A, D, and E together, this is A. And I clearly recognize that movement too as 2, 5, 1, 4, 3. That 3 is actually a 1 over 3. So the answer is, what key is this song in? It's technically in the key of A, but if I was up on stage and I said, okay, we're going to jam this song, what key you guys do it in? And they said B minor, I would just nod, and I'm like, I know what you mean, because it actually starts on B minor. If I go back to the little interactive tab player here and play it. So there's B minor. So then we have B minor, E, A, D, 1 over 3. Oh, it changed there. Anyway, so that's kind of the basic overview. The same is true for the Real Big Fish version, which is kind of a more upbeat sort of ska version. I think they're playing it more like check it out. It's kind of fun. Now, that covers most of the song, but once you get to the bridge section, it does this. Whoa, what's that? All right, so the bridge, C sharp minor, well, that's okay. We're still in the key of A. So 1, 2, 3 chords, C sharp minor, and then G. Well, that is right out. Okay, so we're out of the scale immediately. I know that because the A scale has a G sharp. It's the leading note. G sharp leads us back into our tonic, but here we have a G natural. So where does that come from? I don't know. The first thing I think about is that whenever I'm in a major key, to always look out for the possibility that you'd have a flat 7 in there. That would be G. So if A is 1, G would be a flat 7. And the reason why is because when you're in a major key, the two most common types of major keys that we play in are the natural major or Ionian mode, right? That's the major scale. But it's also very common to play in Mixolydian mode, which would have a flat 7, you know? Think about stuff like... So it's not uncommon for songs to use modal mixture or modal interchange or draw chords from a parallel scale, A major and A Mixolydian mode. That's the way I look at it. Maybe there was another reason why the musicians wanted to go there. It definitely is a surprising turn at this point because you're so used to A, and then all of a sudden, and maybe that was one of the reasons why they wanted the bridge to maybe kind of break up the monotony of the other part of the song and have something that just took things sonically in a different direction. That's my take, and I'm sticking to it. Next question. This comes from William, and he says, I have almost always played a G chord using fingers 1, 2, and 3. Then I go to a C chord and move all 3 fingers to new positions. My hand goes back and forth easily without thinking about it. I have done that for years. It's second nature. I have never really gotten the hang of playing a G chord with fingers 2, 3, and 4, and then just moving fingers 2 and 3 to get to the C. Of course, I see this involves much less hand motion, but it doesn't happen naturally for me. It's way more of a struggle. Do you think it is worth the time and effort to develop the new position and motion, or leave things as they are with the added movement as I am used to? Yeah, that's a good question. So, the old cowboy chord, G, right? By the way, I'm playing my PRS 594 McCarty with Seymour Duncan 59 pickups in it through my Kemper profiling amplifier, and I'm using the Stu G Arshall profile from Tone Junkie, and it's a profile of a Marshall Bluesbreaker amp. All right. So there's our G chord. And you could do it with your first 3 fingers. Hold down the same exact notes with fingers 2, 3, and 4. Or if you're starting with the 6th string, you either put your middle finger on G and then use your index finger, ring finger on the first string, or you put your your ring finger on G, middle finger on the next string, pinky up top. Some people might go fingers 2, 1, pinky up top, or pinky and ring finger up top. So we have some options here. There's certainly nothing wrong with using your first 3 fingers and then picking them up and completely repositioning them for a C chord. And that works well for a lot of things, and that's in fact what I do. In some of my core skills training, I do recommend people try playing the G chord with their ring finger on the G and then their second finger and their pinky up top. It does work well for some things. Like William pointed out, when you're fingering your G this way, well, then your ring finger and your middle finger are in a perfect position where you just move them over a string, and now they're on the C chord. You can add your index finger. Sometimes in songs you might hold the G up top. Think about something like Love Me Do by the Beatles. Now you could play Love Me Do and have all the right notes there, but play the G chord with your first 3 fingers. It takes more movement, but it might actually be easier for you because you're uncomfortable playing the G with fingers 2, 3, and 4. So, yeah, whatever gets the job done. Now, in some cases, I feel like I need to use my ring finger on G. Like if I'm doing something like Take It Easy, 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this case, I'm playing the G with my ring finger on the root G, my pinky up top, and I actually hold those notes, the G in the bottom and the top, when I go to a C chord. C chord, but still got G in the bottom and top. And then I go D7, still got G in the bottom and on the top. So we have a little bit of a pedal tone here, sustaining those G pitches while you go from C to D7, and that's how you get that sound. Now, you could do this by starting the G with fingers 1, 2, and 3. And then when you go to C, then get your ring finger on G and your pinky on the first string. But I don't know that you're really solving your problem. If the reason why you don't like playing G with your ring finger on the root is because you feel uncomfortable with your ring finger on the 6th string and your pinky on the 1st string, well, you have to do that for this version of C and D7. So here's an example where being able to finger the G this way would pay off. But do you have to do it? No, not really. Do you have to play Take It Easy by the Eagles? No. I mean, when I first got exposed to G chords, early on, I realized that I can use fingers 1, 2, and 3, or 2, 3, and 4. Or sometimes I use all 4 fingers, where you've got your ring finger and your pinky finger on strings 2 and 1 up top. That works well if you're going to like a C add 9, or if you're doing something like Wonderwall, which I completely forgot. Oh my gosh, I have a lesson on this. Let's see if I can remember it. So. Go through and relearn that one. Anyway, that's a song where you keep your pinky and ring fingers up top here on an E minor and a G. And sometimes you do this where you keep them there for a D or an A minor or a C. That's very common. So because the key of G is such a commonly used key, and because it's used in different ways, I just kind of got used to those 3 different ways to play a G. But if it's really giving you trouble, or if you're not really coming across songs where you need to use a different G fingering and you're able to get through them with another fingering, no, I don't think you're holding yourself back. Do what you need to do to get the job done for what you're playing. That's what I say. But if you're like me, you are likely going to get exposed to these songs that make use of these different chord voicings that would require some different fingerings for G. Moving on to our next question. This comes from Robert, and he says, "Hi, Desi. Out of the various practice amps you list, without regard to price, which, in your opinion, is the pick of the litter? Perhaps you cannot or don't make specific recommendations, but if you can, that would be helpful." Well, here's my answer. They're all good. They're all useful. Get yourself one and then practice. Sometimes we can just suffer from analysis paralysis, where I'm certainly guilty of this, where we explore our options too much. Find something that's got some different amp models and some basic effects and some good features to help you connect music or headphones and practice, and is in your price range or available, and go to your local music store and play along with some and see what you like. Now, what is the pick of the litter? If I had to pick the one that's probably most popular right now and might deliver the most bang for the buck, it would be the Positive Grid Spark. So it's very similar to like the Boss Katana Air or the Yamaha THR, or there's other units out there. You can just go to Guitar Center or Sweetwater and search for guitar practice amp, and you'll see there's lots of makes and models, but they're all very similar and have almost nearly identical features. The reason why I might recommend the Spark is because I have several students that use it and they really like it, and you can connect it to an app for editing, and you get access to a tone library. So if you're playing along with Green Day, you can just look for a Green Day patch and immediately call it up and have something that's dialed in. Now, the other amps may have something like that too, but I hear a lot of people talking about the different practice tools and features that the app for the Spark has, and it's apparently pretty easy to use and a lot of fun, and they like the sound. Spark just released a new version of it, the Spark 2, which looks like it's a little bit bigger and it's got a little bit more power. And I was actually doing a Zoom lesson with a student, and I complimented him on his guitar. I said, that guitar sounds really good. He goes, well, it's not the guitar. I got a new amp. And he said he didn't want to tell me that he got the new Spark 2. He wanted to see if I would notice that his sound improved. Well, I did. So it actually sounded good, and I could tell that even through Zoom, even across the Atlantic Ocean, because we were in different countries when we were doing that lesson. So yeah, you might look into the Spark 2. And then also I have some students that recently got the Spark Neo amp headphones. Apparently it's just a really good pair of headphones that has built into it the same software that runs the Spark amp, but it's in the headphones. And then you have like a wireless connector, you plug your guitar in, and then you connect to an app like on your phone or something, and you can control the sound and everything. And I've heard really good things about it, and that would be super convenient if you want, a very lightweight, portable way to practice. Maybe if you travel, maybe you have a little small travel electric guitar and you just want to bring some headphones, and you pull up the app on your phone and you can just jam away, and you can connect music to and play along with music and everything. So now there are other options too. You can, go to an online retailer and search guitar headphone amp. Vox has some that are very popular. But I guess if I had to pick, I haven't used all these. I've used the Yamaha, I've used Roland, I've used the Boss Katana. I've played through, and they're all good, and you dial them in. They're all very, very similar. I typically don't use one just because I have a different setup. I use the Kemper profiling amplifier, and it's connected to my computer, and then I have a cabinet for it if I want to hear it in a cabinet, or I've got some little studio monitors here set up so I can hear it at a comfortable level with studio monitors. I typically don't recommend my setup because it's too expensive, it's too complicated, and it's just kind of overkill. So it's not something I would recommend to people. However, if you're at that point and that level where you want a step up from a practice amp, and you want something that you could not only use to practice at home, but something you could take to a gig or a professional, performing situation and plug directly into the PA. I use my Kemper for my podcasts, when I do lessons on Zoom, when I record my video content and video courses. I also take it to church. It plugs directly into the PA system at church and sounds phenomenal. And I also use it live when I play in a band in a professional setting, when I do some special performances or gigs. So I can use it for all of those things. Whereas if my little Boss Katana Air, which I have here, that's something that it's kind of just a little backup, a little practice amp here. If I'm going to, if I wanted to go downstairs or out in the garage or out in the backyard and plug in and just kind of jam or something. Well, I can't take the Kemper without also taking my studio monitors or my cabinet or something like that. I need something to plug it into. The Kemper's great. So is stuff like the Line 6 products, and people are using Quad Cortex. These are that's like professional level. Like you can take that out and tour with that sort of thing. But for most of my students, that's just unnecessary, for them. So that's why I typically don't recommend it. I always tell people, start with something like the Positive Grid Spark. So that's my answer, I guess. If you guys have other opinions on this, or you want to endorse another product, let me know. All right, podcast episode 171 is a wrap. If you have questions you'd like me to answer in future episodes, just head over to guitarmusictheory.com, scroll down and click on the contact link. And while you're there, If you haven't yet signed up for one of my free video courses, be sure to do that. Just answer the quick question about your playing, and I'll send you custom video instruction that's tailored to your current skill level. Whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced player, I'll help you learn something new, put together a plan, and take your playing to the next level so you can have more fun and reach your goals. Enroll now for free at guitarmusictheory.com or just click on the link in the podcast show notes. All right, guitar engineers, thanks for listening. I'm Desi Cerna. Before you go, be sure to subscribe to this podcast, leave a 5-star rating, and drop a positive review if you can. Then keep playing and stay tuned for more.